So I just saw Soul, and it wasn't bad. My expectations were set pretty low considering Pixar's status at this point, and the trailers, while showing off some pretty cool experimental animation, weren't exactly selling me on the concept or tone. And yet, this movie actually kind of pulled through. I think it's been like 3 years since the last good Pixar movie, and about 10 years since the last great one. I wouldn't call this one of my favorite Pixar movies after just one viewing, but it still feels like a return to form for them. Unlike most of the other ones they've come out with recently, this one really does feel like it has a spirit. The movie starts out fine, but after the, without spoiling it, second inciting incident, it really picks up after that. Before that point, the time spent in the Soul realm, while obviously not pointless, was mostly exposition heavy and a little uninvesting for me. It was of course still a beautiful looking place, and even though they weren't my favorite parts of the movie, I never felt like they were wasting any time there. It had a good balance between those scenes and the ones taking place on Earth. There were a lot of interesting techniques used in the animation too, making it stand out from the rest of Pixar's filmography. I really love the 2D stylized characters. They kind of reminded me of that old Christmas special, All of the Other Reindeer, where these flat animated characters are actually being manipulated in a 3D environment. I have to admit though, even though Pixar is getting technically better with their animation as time goes on, I'm not a big fan of the cartoony character designs being wrapped in human skin aesthetic. Something about photorealistic textures on exaggerated bodies is just kind of off-putting to me. Not that I took off any points for it, it's just something I thought I'd mention. The comedy here was kind of a mixed bag. Tina Fey's character was one of the main reasons I was skeptical going into this movie, but as the story progressed, I actually ended up sympathizing with her. I thought the way they wrapped up her character arc was a little too similar to Wreck-It Ralph 2, but it was much better executed here. And speaking of the ending, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I thought it was going to go in a more nuanced direction that would have been pretty unique for Pixar, but then it just ends the way you'd expect it to end and wraps everything up in about 3 minutes. Which didn't make it completely disappointing, it was just kind of underwhelming at the last second, if that makes any sense. I did appreciate how it wasn't just a simple and shallow just be happy in life message at the end, and how it brought up themes like what your purpose in life is compared to what you enjoy doing and what drives you to live. They were understandably dumbed down enough to where kids could understand them, and despite a few moments where characters talked a bit unnaturally just to explain what those themes are, it didn't happen to the point where it got really obnoxious. Other than that, the performances were really good, even from the supporting characters. Of all the Jamie Foxx movies I've seen so far, this is probably my favorite performance from him. Keep in mind that I haven't seen all of his movies, and the bar has been set pretty low for me so far, but he brought a real energy to this role that I haven't seen from him in his past movies. The soundtrack was also a lot more diverse than I was expecting. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who I was surprised to hear worked on this movie, did an excellent job helping contrast the Soul world from Earth. Everything from them was very futuristic and angelic, and the jazzy soundtrack used on Earth by Jon Batiste was used very appropriately, and were most always complimentary to the scene and never insisted on emotions that weren't there. Overall, it was just a refreshingly enjoyable experience, and I have no issue recommending this to basically everyone. Fingers crossed that Pixar gets on another creative streak. But I'm not counting on it.